Claimed by many to be the true father of the electric age, brilliant inventor Nikola Tesla discovered the electric alternating current.
We were not a random accident. At least, that's what Nikola Tesla believed. Not based on faith, not speculation, but something he claimed to understand deeply. This interview you are about to hear was buried for nearly a century, hidden, suppressed. It's only now beginning to resurface, at a time when the world seems ready to listen.
I have always believed that I have been led to evolve beyond my species.
Tesla didn't talk about circuits or inventions here. He talked about life, the origin of everything. And if you're not prepared to question everything you've ever believed, you might want to stop watching, because what follows might shake you to the core.
This is my latest invention.
What Tesla discovered. In the 1930s, journalists made regular visits to the 20th floor of the Hotel Governor Clinton in Manhattan, where an aging Nikola Tesla still spoke with fire in his voice.
I knew with this ability I could create great and wondrous inventions, devices to solve all of the world's problems.
They came for his thoughts on the future and left with far more than just predictions. He spoke of energy, humanity, even the unknown. But to understand where those thoughts came from, you would have to go back to the summer of 1899, high up in the Colorado mountains, where Tesla built one of the most powerful experimental labs ever seen. Surrounded by dry air and open skies, he carried out tests with electricity and wireless transmission that were far ahead of their time. But buried within the reports of lightning storms and glowing coils was something else, something far less discussed. Tesla believed he had picked up a signal, not a natural frequency, not background noise, something deliberate, and whatever it was, it didn't seem to come from Earth. Years later, when questioned in interviews, he brought it up again, the idea that there was an intelligence behind those signals, something trying to reach out. He spoke calmly, but there was urgency in his tone. He didn't claim it was from aliens or spirits. He simply said the signals were structured, repetitive, purposeful, and that meant something was behind them. By the 1930s, his tone had shifted slightly, but his beliefs had not. He no longer talked only about energy or invention. He spoke about intelligence in the universe, something greater than randomness. In one interview, he said plainly, "The universe is alive with intelligence." Another time, he explained, "The day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in one decade than in all the previous centuries of its existence." Why would one of the most brilliant scientific minds of the modern age say something like that? What had he seen? Tesla wasn't just a man of calculations. He saw connections. He believed everything in nature followed patterns that pointed towards something higher, not by accident, not by luck, but by design. He wasn't alone in thinking this way. Others dismissed him, called him eccentric. Some even said he had lost touch with reality. But the signals he claimed to hear, others later reported similar ones. Were they all imagining it? Or was Tesla simply the first to detect what had always been there? It makes you wonder. What exactly did he tap into out there in the Colorado night? And more importantly, why did he believe so strongly that those signals weren't random? Nikola Tesla and the cosmic code. There were times when Tesla would sit for hours without moving, eyes locked on a single point in the room. Not asleep, not distracted, just thinking. His assistants learned not to interrupt those moments, because when he finally did speak, it often left them speechless. What could possibly be running through the mind of a man who saw the entire universe as one connected machine? He once said, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." To many, that might sound abstract. To Tesla, it was the blueprint of reality. Everything we touch, hear, and see, he believed, operates within patterns. Nothing is truly random. Even the things we call accidents follow a rhythm we just haven't figured out yet. Back in the 19th century, many scientists described the universe as a kind of giant clock, a predictable system set in motion by some initial force. But Tesla took it further. He didn't just believe the universe ran on fixed laws. He felt those laws pointed to something greater behind them, something that didn't leave anything to chance. He refused to accept that nature was messy, that life was a string of coincidences stitched together by luck. He believed in precision, in order. And when he looked at the sky or studied the pulse of electricity through his machines, he saw the same structure repeating itself everywhere. Why would those patterns exist unless they were designed to be there? Tesla rejected the growing popularity of random evolution and mechanical chance. He wasn't swayed by the idea that life and consciousness appeared out of nowhere. In his view, consciousness had to be wired into the fabric of the universe itself. He believed strongly that some kind of intelligence shaped the order we now live in. Even in his most grounded work with alternating current and wireless technology, he kept circling back to the same theme. Everything moved because something willed it to. That motion wasn't blind. It had a purpose. He often talked about energy being stored all around us, waiting to be tapped, waiting to be understood. But what he really seemed to be chasing was the source behind that energy. Where did it come from? Who or what arranged the frequencies and vibrations in such an exact way? You begin to wonder, was Tesla building machines to change the world, or to decode the mind that made it? And if the universe really does run like a machine, who built it? Tesla's belief in the Akashic field and cosmic intelligence. There was a moment in 1895 when Tesla walked out of his lab and stood still, almost frozen. He later spoke of what he experienced that day. He said it felt like time had cracked open. For a brief moment, he claimed he could see the past, the present, and the future all at once. The feeling didn't last long, but it left something behind in him, something permanent. From then on, Tesla began to speak about knowledge in a way few scientists dared. He didn't believe the brain created ideas. Instead, he believed it received them, as if the mind was a kind of antenna, tuning into something greater. He said, "My brain is only a receiver. In the universe, there is a core from which we obtain knowledge." That idea, once dismissed as mystical, now stands as one of the most striking things he ever said. But what exactly was he referring to? Over the years, researchers and spiritual thinkers would later connect this idea to a concept known as the Akashic field. It describes a non-physical layer of reality that stores information, past events, thoughts, even the structure of the future. According to those who study it, it's not imaginary. It's real, only hidden from the physical senses. Tesla didn't use the term Akashic himself, but when you look closely at what he described, it fits. He spoke of a kind of intelligence that exists everywhere, woven into the fabric of space, not something distant or unreachable. He believed it surrounded us constantly. To him, this field was where thought itself came from. That meant human creativity, invention, emotion. None of it started inside the skull. All of it passed through us. And that brings up a bigger question. If knowledge doesn't originate in the brain, then who or what built the system it comes from? Tesla never gave that part a name. He avoided religious labels, but he always insisted that this intelligence had structure. It wasn't wild or shifting. It followed rules, which meant someone or something had written them. He didn't explain this idea in textbooks. He let it surface in interviews, like one that took place in the late 1930s, where he spoke freely about energy, vibration, and the invisible architecture that holds reality together. Some parts of that conversation have been lost, others were recorded. But what remains paints a clear picture of a man who saw science and higher order as connected, not separate. He also believed that by aligning with the right frequencies, one could access this hidden layer. That's why he became obsessed with specific numbers, specific patterns. He wasn't just chasing results, he was chasing alignment. And if such a field really exists, one that holds all knowledge, all direction, and all life, then is it not fair to ask where it came from? To Tesla, that field wasn't a product of evolution. It wasn't something built by time. It was already there, waiting, structured, complete, which makes his words carry more weight now than ever before. What if the intelligence behind human invention never came from humans at all? The numbers Tesla couldn't ignore. At first glance, it might have seemed like a simple quirk. Tesla would often circle a building 3 times before walking in. He insisted on doing things in sets of 3, whether it was wiping his plates or knocking on doors. But to him, it was more than routine. It was a ritual, a way to tap into something greater than logic or routine, something cosmic. Tesla once said, "If you only knew the magnificence of the 3, 6, and 9, then you would have the key to the universe." He didn't say it lightly. These numbers weren't random to him. He believed they held a deeper meaning, tied to the very structure of everything around us. It wasn't about superstition. It was about design. But why those numbers specifically? Why 3, 6, and 9? To Tesla, it came down to patterns. In his eyes, nature followed a code. Whether it was the spin of galaxies, the rhythm of waves, or the growth of plants, he believed it all followed certain repeating sequences. Numbers that, when studied carefully, hinted at a kind of order beneath the chaos. An order that didn't just suggest randomness or accident, but planning, maybe even intention. The number 3, he often noted, appears again again and again in spiritual and natural traditions. Think of it: past, present, future, birth, life, death, the Holy Trinity. He believed the number represented the foundation of structure, something stable and complete. Then came 6. Tesla viewed it as motion, vibration, energy. In ancient texts, 6 pointed symbols were tied to balance and harmony. 2 opposing triangles merged into one. Tesla believed this symbolized the tension that held the universe together. And then 9. To him, it was the highest, a number of completion, the end of a cycle before it repeats. In Tesla's world, 9 meant connection to a higher level, like a bridge between the physical and the divine. It is easy to dismiss these as just numbers, but Tesla didn't treat them that way. He saw them as keys, and he wasn't the first. Ancient mathematicians and mystics believed in sacred geometry, which is the idea that numbers and shapes weren't just mathematical, but spiritual, that they revealed the structure of a mind behind creation. Tesla's beliefs lined up with these ideas more than people realized. He once said, "Everything is the light." It echoed his idea that the universe wasn't just built on random chance, but shaped by laws, rules that followed patterns that could be understood with the right numbers. And perhaps that's why the interview felt so strange. When Tesla spoke about these things, it wasn't in theory. It was with conviction, like he had seen something that couldn't be explained through regular science, like he had brushed up against a layer of reality the rest of us couldn't feel. And in those numbers, he saw more than math. He saw evidence. But if these numbers truly are a key, then what exactly do they unlock? Tesla believed the answers were all around us, written in vibration, waiting to be decoded. And maybe, just maybe, this strange obsession with numbers was never an obsession at all. Maybe it was a clue. The power behind the genius. Some ideas sound strange at first, until you hear who they came from. In Nikola Tesla's case, his beliefs about a higher power were not just private thoughts he kept hidden. He spoke openly about them, weaving them into the way he talked about energy, time, and the laws of nature. But Tesla's idea of a higher power wasn't tied to any church or holy book. It was something else entirely, something broader, more mechanical, yet still deeply mysterious. In his own words, Tesla believed the universe was alive with intelligence. He once said the secrets of nature could only be uncovered if one tuned into that intelligence, the same way a radio catches a signal. He called it the source of all mental power and creative energy. He didn't mean that in a poetic sense. He meant it literally. For him, inspiration didn't just come from within the human brain. He believed it was transmitted, like electricity. Tesla didn't reject science. In fact, he saw it as a tool that brought him closer to this great system. The more he learned about the forces of nature, the more convinced he became that everything was governed by a kind of order that couldn't be random. In one interview, he hinted that what we call the laws of physics might actually be instructions from a conscious intelligence. Not something we invented, but something we discovered. When asked about religion, Tesla didn't side with the traditional view of God as a bearded man in the clouds. He didn't pray in the way most people do, but he wasn't an atheist either. In fact, he spoke against atheism many times. What he described was more like a force, not a personality, but a presence that filled every corner of the universe, guiding the structure of atoms, the pull of gravity, and even the rhythm of our thoughts. This belief came through in his work. He said he never invented anything by accident. The designs came to him fully formed, as if they were already made somewhere else, and all he had to do was receive them. Was that just his mind working ahead of its time, or was he really tapping into something bigger? Could it be possible, then, that intelligence did not start with us? That thought itself might have existed before the first living cell? Tesla never claimed to have the full answer, but he pointed to patterns, cycles, frequencies, invisible threads that seemed too precise to be coincidence. In that way, his approach wasn't religious, but it was spiritual in a very specific sense. It was rooted in observation. He didn't follow rituals or scriptures. He watched nature. He studied light, sound, and motion. And every time, he saw hints of a system that was too perfect to come from nothing. So when people today claim Tesla was just a brilliant inventor, they miss something. He was trying to answer one of the oldest questions of all: where do we come from? And more importantly, is there something or someone that shaped the rules we live by? Tesla's view on how we got here. While others were busy mapping the tree of life through random mutations and survival instincts, Nikola Tesla was quietly challenging the whole idea. In his world, life wasn't just the result of lucky accidents or chemicals colliding over time. He saw something else at work, something that couldn't be measured in a lab, something intelligent. Tesla lived in a time when Darwin's theory of natural selection had already gained major ground. Across Europe and America, scientists were diving headfirst into materialism. The belief that everything, including life and thought, could be explained by physical processes alone. They believed that consciousness was a byproduct of evolution. that life was the outcome of millions of years of randomness, slowly stacking up. But Tesla didn't buy it. He once said, "The universe is simply a great machine which never came into being and never will end." It was a statement that reflected his belief in order, not chaos. He didn't think humans came from a meaningless chain of coincidences. He believed that intelligence, not chance, was behind creation. To Tesla, consciousness wasn't something that came from matter. In fact, he thought the exact opposite. He believed matter was shaped by energy and intelligence, not the other way around. The idea that thought could emerge from physical stuff alone seemed absurd to him. He saw the world as being filled with patterns, energy flows, and design. And for him, that design had to come from something greater. He also said, "Every living being is an engine geared to the wheelwork of the universe." That wasn't just poetry, it was his way of saying life had purpose, that we were not accidents, that we were wired into something vast and intelligent. Tesla's views weren't common in his day. In fact, they were often dismissed or ignored. Most of the scientific community leaned toward Darwin's ideas. They were convinced that evolution through natural selection could explain everything. But Tesla didn't try to fit in. He questioned what others accepted, and what he saw didn't match the idea that all life came from random chance. He wasn't religious in the traditional sense, but he often spoke like someone who saw beyond the physical world. He believed there were layers to reality that science had yet to understand. For Tesla, the more he studied nature, the more convinced he became that it was being guided, not by luck, but by intelligence. So when we speak of Tesla and the idea of a higher power, this is where it becomes clearer. He wasn't pointing to any single religion. He wasn't quoting from scripture. But through his experiments and observations, he became more certain that there was a force or mind behind it all. Could that force be the same one ancient texts called the Creator? Could our own intelligence be a reflection of that greater one? These are the kinds of questions Tesla leaves behind. What Tesla might have discovered. Right after Nikola Tesla died in 1943 in his New York hotel room, something strange happened. Officials from the United States government, specifically from the Office of Alien Property, stepped in and seized every document, sketch, and machine part found in his possession. Most people believed Tesla had died penniless and alone, but what followed sparked years of debate. Why would the government move so fast to collect the belongings of a man many thought was no longer relevant? Inside Tesla's room, there were trunks filled with handwritten notes, complicated blueprints, and devices that no one could fully explain at the time. Some of it was returned to his family later, but not everything. Key documents were never seen again. Where did they go, and what did they contain? Years later, some of the confiscated files were quietly declassified, and they raised even more questions than answers. These weren't simple lab notes. Some described machines that could alter the very fabric of space and time. Others spoke of a new form of energy, something not yet understood by modern science. It was almost as if Tesla had been reaching into a level of knowledge no one else dared to explore. One theory suggests he was working on a type of energy that pulled directly from the atmosphere, what he once called the ether. If true, this could have been a free, limitless power source that didn't rely on coal, oil, or electricity grids. That kind of discovery would have threatened entire industries. Could that be the reason those files disappeared? Some FBI documents acknowledge that Tesla's ideas were seen as too advanced, maybe even dangerous. There's even a note that calls his concepts speculative but technically feasible. That choice of words says a lot. Were these files removed to protect the public, or to hide something from it? And here is where it gets even stranger. Tesla often talked about how his discoveries weren't just from trial and error. He claimed to receive ideas in sudden bursts of inspiration, almost like they were passed down from somewhere else. Could this explain why he got so far ahead of his time? And if so, did those missing files hold clues about a greater intelligence guiding his work? The silence surrounding what was taken, and what never came back, has made some people believe that Tesla uncovered something far bigger than anyone realized. Something that could change the way we understand life, the universe, and maybe even our origin. We may never know exactly what was in those lost papers, but the urgency with which they were taken and the quiet way they vanished hint that Tesla's work may have crossed into territory few ever reach. The hidden belief Tesla took to his grave. Even in his final years, Nikola Tesla remained consumed by a search that had started long before the lights of his inventions lit up the world. It was not about electricity anymore, or even energy. It was something deeper. He had been chasing the structure behind the structure, the invisible threads holding everything together. And though most dismissed it as obsession, what if he had actually touched something no one else had? Tesla often spoke about energy, frequency, and vibration being the keys to the universe. At the time, it sounded poetic, but today, Today, some of the world's leading physicists explore similar ideas. Quantum field theory, string theory, and the concept of multidimensional space all deal with energy that moves through invisible fields. They describe a reality that is not solid or fixed, but shaped by patterns and vibrations, something Tesla hinted at nearly a century ago. While many scientists of his time tried to keep religion and science in separate boxes, Tesla didn't. He believed that understanding the universe meant looking beyond the surface. To him, there was no conflict between science and what some would call the divine. Tesla wasn't trying to prove a religion. He was asking a question, one that still echoes today. What are we really made of? If the universe is ruled by order, frequency, and design, then where did that design come from? Was it all by chance, or was it put there on purpose? The man who gave us wireless energy and dreamed of lighting the planet with nothing but the sky might have been doing something more. He may have been pointing us toward a truth that modern science is only now beginning to understand. If Tesla was right, and if science is catching up to him, then we have to ask, was he showing us that the universe itself is proof of a higher power? If you found this journey through Tesla's mind as fascinating as we did, consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.